Maybe it'll start. All right. Welcome, everyone, to today's Google Search Central SEO Office Hours Hangout. My name is John Mueller. I'm a search advocate at Google here in Switzerland. And part of what we do are these Office Hour Hangouts, where people can join in and ask their questions around their website and web search. And we can try to find some answers. Bunch of stuff was submitted on YouTube, so we can go through some of that. But it also looks like a handful of you are already raising your hands. So maybe we'll just start off with all of that. I hope you're doing well. I hope you caught up and had a chance to take a look at all of the Google I/O stuff. It seems like there was some pretty neat stuff happening there. So I don't know. I don't have a ton of really super new insights to the super new announcements, but maybe I can help if anyone has questions. All right, Barry, looks like you're lined up first.
Cool, thanks. I guess two questions on I/O. One is, can you tell us what you like most about the show? Like what maybe session or what you found most interesting about it? And two, is there anything that you may have not seen the community discuss that maybe should have been discussed from the I/O event?
I don't know. I think the parts I found really cool are, on the one hand, the adventure game, which I thought was done really well, and it was like almost like seeing people at a conference. Like you run across names that you've seen before, not quite the same, but it was pretty good. And the other one is everything around RSS, where it's like suddenly all of that is kind of back, and you can follow sites in Chrome and kind of keep up with them, which I thought was pretty cool.
Excellent, thank you.
You had a second question, right?
Yeah, like anything you saw that you didn't see the community talking about that maybe came up in I/O that wasn't discussed by the community. Like, I can't believe they missed this announcement or that announcement.
I don't know. It's like such a whirlwind. I don't know. I'll probably notice in the coming weeks. But it seems like a lot of stuff got picked up. I mean, some of the aspects were a bit tricky with regards to having to record them ahead of time. You never really know exactly what will happen until then. But I think like some of the cool stuff got announced anyway, so that was pretty nice. But yeah, I don't know, the big announcements, it's hard to judge what people didn't pick up, because it feels like people picked up a ton of details. So
sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. Let's see, Xiao.
Hi, Sean. John, sorry. I have a question regarding to schema markup, data markup, structured data markup. So I remember that Google preferred JSON LD, but for e-commerce site, it will be quite hard to do so because the review and the price are always changing. So it is, to some degree, it's more easy to use microdata to do so. However, since Google preferred JSON LD, is that a way that we can use JSON LD and dynamically inject it without using JavaScript? Because I remember if we use JavaScript, there is a possibility that Google Merchant Center bot do not crawl it. So we also don't want to use JavaScript. Is that possible to do HTML-based, but JSON LD, but at the same time dynamic, maybe some fancy PHP?
Sure. I mean, you can use anything that runs on your server, essentially, to generate the HTML, and that can include the JSON LD like that. I mean, that's usually how. I mean, I haven't taken a look at the details, but my assumption is that's how most e-commerce sites do that. That they look up the database information, the pricing, the availability, and they put that into markup in JSON LD or microdata or whatever format. And I think the part with our preference there is mostly along the lines that oftentimes people externally just want like one preference. Like these are multiple options that you can do, and we recommend using JSON LD because it usually makes it easier for sites to implement. But that doesn't mean that there's any less value passed with like the other types of markup. So if whatever feature you're looking for supports that type of markup and that's what you want to do, then like go for it. I wouldn't say you need to do kind of Google's preference, right? Because usually people just come to us and say, it's like, oh, you have 2 or 3 options. Which one is the best one? And if we just say, oh, I don't know, just figure it out yourself, then everyone's like, oh, I won't do anything. But if we say, it's like, oh, we really like this option, then it's a lot easier for them to say, OK, I'll just start and do that.
So by Google prefer JSON LD, the preferential is actually not that significant. They basically judge the 3 format practically equally. Would you say that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if the feature that you're looking for is available in those different formats, then they're completely equivalent. It's not that we would give any special treatment to JSON LD.
I see. Thank you.
Cool. All right, Fabrizio.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Fabrizio Ferrari of virtualsheetmusic.com here. John, we had a quick chat a few weeks ago about this image and image search related issue we got on our website. And I wanted to know your thoughts about it personally. I also discussed with Glenn Gabe about this, and I know that he's very interested in your thoughts too. So on March 23rd, we changed the source URLs of our main image on our product pages to a new optimized image. And the previous image was supposed to be used for high-density devices to be set inside this source set attribute. Fact is that we forgot to implement that. And after 2 days, we had a drop of 30% traffic for image search. And we didn't realize that then after 4 weeks. So after 4 weeks, we added the source set tag attribute. And so we are still hoping to have our traffic back. But after 2 months, that's not happened yet. So I wanted to know from you, just a matter of time, or is there anything else we can do about it?
I don't know. It feels like 2 months is a pretty long time, but especially since you mentioned these are product pages, it sounds like an e-commerce site.
Yeah.
In that case, and you're looking specifically at traffic from image search?
Yeah, because we got a 30% drop on image search, but consequently, we had also something like 5–10% drop in traffic from regular search because of that. Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's possible that the 2 months time there is just like the time that it's still taking to catch up with a larger site. One thing you could do is maybe send me some details, and I can look at that with the image search team directly.
Okay.
I would also double check the details on your side with regards to which image URLs are actually shown in image search. Has it picked up the change in image URLs?
No, I still see that they're old images, but it looks like they dropped in rankings for some reason. And and I think it's related to that because that happened 2 days after the change.
2 days is like a really short time, because if you're looking at an e-commerce site, then if we recrawl the different products, my guess is depending on the site, it'd be in the range of 2 or 3 weeks for us to recrawl a bigger e-commerce site, or even medium-sized e-commerce site. So if you're seeing changes like 2 days after a change that you made, that feels like it wouldn't be related to that.
Oh, well, that's amazing, because we had that kind of traffic we had that kind of traffic for years, and then we made this change after 2 days. We dropped 30%. So, and we didn't do anything else than that around that time frame.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Glenn Gabe also suggested that was directly related to that. But I wanted to hear from the source.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to send me some examples. But
Sure.
If you're seeing a strong change across a larger part of a website within a short period of time, then that doesn't feel like it would be related to something technical on the pages.
Okay, I see.
Unless it's like your home page, and suddenly your home page is not showing anymore, then
Right.
you'd see a big change like immediately. But for like a larger set of product pages, each one individually has like a small change, you would see a gradual decline.
Right. But in case that was the case, I mean, should Google pick up the updated version with the source set defined and fix things later on? Is that something should happen?
That's like if it's really just related to a change of image URLs, I would expect that to happen over the course of a couple months. But so 2 months is kind of like, I would expect to see some effects by now. But
actually, it just passed a month since I put the source set tag.
OK.
Yeah. So maybe I still need to wait.
To me, it sounds more like maybe a quality change, where our algorithms are overall kind of reevaluating the quality of your website, because that's something that could happen from one day to the next.
OK.
And I wouldn't see this as something that's tied to like a technical change across a lot of product pages.
OK, I see. All right. Thank you very much. I'll send you some details.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Promo Tash, I think. I got your name right.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Yeah, you got my name right. Actually, you was the first person to get my name right on the first instant.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. So actually, I have some basic questions that I have asked many people, but I am unable to get a straight answer. Okay. So I have few questions. Like one is, suppose I have a WordPress blog in which I have created some tags and categories. Okay. So what happened? Now I want to delete those tags and categories. These tags were created for some post, but these tags don't have any backlinks. And these categories also don't have any backlinks. And if I delete, what will happen? Like Google will down my rankings, or it will not?
So just because there are no external links to those pages doesn't mean that Google would not be able to find them. So that's kind of the first thing, because especially if you have posts that have tags and categories on them, then you have links from the posts to the tags and category pages. So what I would look at there, instead of external links, is how those pages are currently being shown. So in Search Console and the performance report, look at the individual tag and category pages, or kind of like the group of those pages. And then based on that, you can make a decision. Can I just delete these pages? Do I need to redirect them or not? If there's almost no traffic or no visibility of those pages, then cleaning that up is perfectly fine.
Okay. On that same question, I have another question. Like I have been using some SEO tools which suggest that I should create canonical links. Okay. For suppose there are 2 tags and there is a post. So it is better to direct all the tags and the post to the same canonical link. So is it correct, or I should not do?
We usually recommend using the canonical link element when you have multiple URLs for the same content. And it sounds like these are different pieces of content, like the category page, the tag page.
Suppose I create suppose it's an example. Suppose my post is dog food. So I have a tag called dog. I have a tag called food. Okay. And there is a category called animal. Okay. Or pets. There is a category. Okay. So now I want to delete pets plus food and dog. because I want to create some different tags or categories.
Mhm.
So you already gave me like I have to group and check. After that, so if like suppose let's take an example of WordPress using which we can define the canonical links. Okay, so while testing the SEO, SEO for readability and SEO, we find like that it shows like within the tag also you have to create some content, or within the category also you have to write some content. Because if I check on any SEO tool, it will suggest that your tag is empty. You need to create content. Again, the problem is like you don't, I am unable to reproduce the same content. Suppose I have a content called food and I have tagged it for dog food, and the food is a generic term. And how can I write a content for like dog? Canonical will also not work. I have to, again, if I create a tag, then Google will expect that I would write around 500 to 800 words. So
I guess a couple
do you
of things.
think like tag just to add, do you think like tags have an importance? Like if the tag should have a proper content, like 500 keywords for a tag in WordPress?
We don't count the words. So I would not look at the word count and say it's like it needs to have this much content. Usually what I recommend doing is looking at the tag and category pages more as kind of groupings of categories of things. So if you have a lot of posts about different kinds of pet food, then making a category for pet food makes total sense. However, if you only have one post about dog food, then making a category for dog food is kind of like, well, it's the same thing. It's not a group of things or a category of things. So that's something where I'd say, well, probably you don't need that. But purely from an SEO point of view, I would try to minimize the number of pages that you create across your website, and try to make sure that for all of the pages that you do have, that you have significant content there. So if you're saying like this category dog food doesn't have anything unique on it, then maybe you don't need that category. And that's kind of the direction I would take there. It's not that we would penalize a page if it's a category page and there's just one item there. It's more that you're diluting the value of your website across a lot of unnecessary pages that you could concentrate and make your existing important pages more stronger.
Okay. So again, suppose I have installed empty pages plugin installed on. Okay. Now what happens? It will generate one more link as empty. Suppose I have example.com.
I can hardly hear you. It's very broken, the connection at the moment. Oh no. I just hear individual kind of short pieces of sound. Or maybe you can type the question in the chat, and I can get back to you afterwards. OK. Maybe we'll just move to the next one first. And like I said, if I see a question in the chat, we can get back to that. Ratnesh.
Good evening, John.
Hi.
So it's the first time like I'm talking to you, and thank you. So I have a couple of questions. I'll go by one. So the first question is like my website is 100% Core Web Vital passed, and all the URLs are Core Web Vital valid. Now I want to restructure my site. Restructuring, I mean to say that I want to change the URL to the better SEO friendly URL. So earlier, like lot of subfolders were present and lot of subdirectories were present for the primary content, which we want to rank organically. So my first query is, now I have already changed the URL. So will the core web vital metrics, whatever exist for my pages, will be passed to the redirected URL? This is the first question.
That should be the case, yeah.
Because those pages are entirely different. Like page X is in folder XXX. Now there is a new page which is not under folder, but now I have a redirect. So
Yeah.
the web vital score is directly captured from the Chrome user experience report. So user have not opened the page. So do you think that core web vital benefits, whatever captured in the Google Webmaster, will be passed?
My understanding is that they would be. Like any other signal from search, if we see a redirect, then we would forward the signals that we have and apply them to the new URL. And it doesn't matter so much if the URL looks different. It's more that you're moving from one URL to another URL. But I would expect this kind of a change whenever you're doing kind of a restructuring of a website internally, especially with changing URLs. I would expect that to be something where you would see fluctuations in search, maybe for a month or two.
OK, fine. I got the answer. So I'll go with the next question. So my next question is, like, suppose I have a website and I have only 100 pages indexed. So Google will capture the CUX report, Chrome User Experience report only for those indexed pages by the Google, or for all the pages which are even not indexed by the Google?
So in general, Chrome would be collecting this data on a per URL basis and be using the usual anonymization techniques, kind of what is used with the Chrome User Experience Report data to collect that. And then how that would be applied to your website in search would essentially try to be done on a per URL basis. So you might have 1,000 pages in total, and if 100 of those are shown in search, then for those 100 that we would show in search, we would use those 100 pages and their signals. We wouldn't really use the other 1,000 pages that you also have.
I got your answer. Thank you. So like my third question is, like, the third question is, like, I have a page where I'm putting like tag lang equal to en, English. In the meta tag, I'm marking that language I'm using is English. But I have other content also, like in Spanish or French or something which is in non-English. But I'm not making this, adding the tag, meta tag lang equal to French or something like that. So will my non-English language content will be used by Google for ranking factors, or it will be considered like, OK, I have other content also which is in non-English language and I still want to rank without adding the tag?
I mean, if we find internal links to those pages, we can crawl and index those pages.
It's Santa Claus.
Whoops. And it's something where, like, if we have links there, we will crawl and index those pages. We don't use the lang meta tag on pages, but rather we try to understand which language a page is in based on the text. So if you have content in different languages, we'll try to find that and show that in search appropriately. And then it will be used for ranking because it could be shown in search.
OK, so my the last question I have is a little bit more related to the schema.org. Not last, second last. So like we are a coupon site, affiliate coupon site. So we have seen the post by the Google, like Google will not rank the site which are having the thin content. Thin content means most of the affiliate site, they have the similar content, not adding any value to the content system or the web system, or not even adding much value to the content or the user experience. So what we have done, like we have done a lot of hard work from almost more than 2 years to think on that. And we have added a lot of schema.org, JSON LD, whatever required, like FAQ page, and we have captured almost most of the thing which can add value to the users. I mean, forgetting about whether we are going to get a traffic or not, we have considered that, okay, the user experience, and it should benefit, like if user is browsing our site or browsing our page, let him benefit from the site first. So considering that, like I have a page, I am listing a Walmart sale event. So the sale event, like they can have n number of sale event, like Black Friday sale or New Year sale or Christmas sale. So can I have a page on my site where I list all the sale events, and can I also mark them with the sale event schema? Is that allowed? Because I have seen on the Google, like we should not add a markup, and it can bring down our ranking and can penalize if we put a wrong schema or something which is not misleading the user or the system. Yeah. So the question is, like I'll summarize. I want to list down the sale event for particular merchant, and I want to mark those sale events. Like, what is the sale event name? Like, say, Black Friday. What is the time period of that? I just want to mark them in the form of schema.org JSON LD. So is that fine? Should we go ahead and make this change?
I don't know offhand the requirements for that type of markup. My understanding is if you're using the event markup, that would not be suitable for this. And in general, the structured data on the pages should be applicable to the primary type of content on the page. So I suspect listing a bunch of events from one vendor on a single page and marking that up would not be in line with the guidelines for structured data on our side. But I don't know all of the guidelines by heart. So I would recommend checking out the documentation and just double-checking before you implement it. Also, keep in mind there's a lot of structured data in schema.org, which we don't necessarily show in search. So it might be that the sale event structured data, I'm not aware of it. It might be something that we don't even use at Google.
OK, fine. I'll double check the standard. And OK. So the last question is, like, what is the importance and significance of making page as a corner store content?
How do you mean? I didn't quite understand.
I mean, we in the plugin, like SEO Yoast plugin, we can mark a post as a cornerstone content. Cornerstone.
I don't know. That sounds like something specific to the plugin. So
OK. Yeah. OK. The thing is, like, I mean, we are still, like, we have followed the best practices and considering the user experience and adding the best content. So we are still struggling with some traffic. So if we can get some pointers, like what is causing the issue with our site or something, like what is exactly making our site to struggle to rank organically instead of, like, after we have put a lot of efforts?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like something that's kind of out of scope for the office hours here. My recommendation there would be to go to the Search Central help forums and post some of the details of what you've seen, some examples from your website with URLs, and try to get advice from other people there. You probably won't find, like, this one thing that you need to do to improve your ranking, but they might be able to give you advice and say, oh, it looks like this is just a collection of affiliate links, or it looks like there's not enough content actually on these pages. And I think that's the kind of input that can be quite useful.
Yeah, thank you, John, for all the answers and long questions. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Let me run through some of the submitted questions, and then I'll get back to all of the hands that are raised as well, just so that we don't lose track of the submitted things. Let's see. We have different types of pages on our site: contract pages, vendor pages. We recently released product pages. And category pages, after our release of product pages, we saw meaningful site traffic decrease as product pages were being frequently ranked above supplier pages. Any tips on how to indicate to Google what product pages are less relevant than other types of pages other than de-indexing our product pages? Yeah, it also mentions the priority in the sitemap. We don't use the priority in the sitemap file. We originally, I think we thought that would help us to figure out which pages to crawl more frequently, but it turns out not to be that super useful. With regards to a general website where you have different types of pages and you want to have one type of page kind of ranking above another one, there's no HTML markup where you can kind of specify this is my most important type of page and this is less important type of page. But what you can do is create the web structures such that Google will recognize which pages you care about most. In particular, for most websites, we tend to look at the home page as something that's the most important part of the website. And from there, we see kind of the links that lead out to the rest of your website. And then kind of all of those individual steps of links, like going to the first step and then going from there to the next step, all of that essentially gives us a little bit of a guidance on what you consider to be the most important part. So we'll start with your home page, and we'll think, well, the most important pages you probably mentioned on your home page. So we'll go off and crawl those and try to give those also a little bit more weight in the search results. And from there, we'll go to the next pages. So if you have a structure where you have like category pages, subcategory pages, and then product pages, and they're kind of linked like a tree structure from there, usually we'll see kind of the category pages as being kind of more important and kind of less importance as things kind of fan out a little bit. And you can also control that a little bit yourself in that you could kind of individually take individual products where you say, oh, this is my most important product. Either maybe it's a new product, or maybe it's a product where you sell a lot of things, or where you have a kind of a high ROI on the specific products. And you could specifically mention those on the home page. So when we crawl your site, we'll see, oh, category pages, but also these 5 products are mentioned on the home page. Therefore, those 5 products must be really important. And you can apply the same thing with your specific kind of site structure there. So take the URLs that you care about the most, make sure that they're linked from kind of the root of your website, and then from there, think about like what the structure for the rest should be. And especially if you have kind of like a medium to large size website, that's something you can probably pull together fairly nicely. If you have a smaller website where you have like 10 pages and they're all equally important, then it's a lot harder for us to figure out which one of these pages is actually the most important for you, because they're all usually all linked together anyway. But it sounds like you have kind of a structure where you could tweak things a little bit. So that's kind of the direction I would go there. My website has limited traffic within a threshold, and I didn't get a notification in Search Console about page experience, and I couldn't get any field data from any of the tools like PageSpeed Insights or Chrome User Experience Report. Just wondering how to find the field data of the website, benchmark, and work on that. So yeah, I think this is a super important question, because we do use the field data as essentially the metric that we would use for search. When we start rolling out the page experience update for rankings, we would base that on the field data. And if your website doesn't have any field data available, then of course, we don't have anything to work on. But that doesn't mean that you don't have anything to work on. On the one hand, you have the different lab tests that you can use to try to figure out like which pages you need to work on most. On the other hand, you can also use snippets of JavaScript on your pages directly and collect the field data yourself. And by collecting the field data yourself, you also kind of go around that 28-day time period of like the time that it would take for Google to collect the data and show it to you in Search Console as well. So that's kind of the direction I would go there. On the one hand, use the lab tools to test immediately. And then if you really need or feel the need to collect field data, even though your website doesn't have a lot of traffic, then make sure to implement kind of those scripts on those pages to collect the field data for yourself. There's, I think, an article on web.dev where essentially it uses, I think, analytics to collect the field data on a website. So that might be an approach you could take. A couple of months ago, I used the Yoast Video plugin to submit a video sitemap for my recipe site. Since then, I've seen a dramatic decrease in click-throughs on my recipes. My rank itself has stayed the same, and impressions are about the same. But now in mobile, I'm seeing recipe videos start autoplaying a few seconds in the search results. I'm wondering if that is contributing to the drastic decrease in click-through rate on my recipes. So as a little bit more in the question. But essentially, I think there are a few parts here. On the one hand, it is possible that if your site is being shown in a different way in the search results, that people are interacting with that slightly differently. It could be that, like, especially if you have a video snippet shown in the search results, maybe they look at the video and they say, oh, this isn't actually what I was looking for, and then they tend not to go to your site. They could also be looking at the video snippet and saying, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for, and then actually go to your website. So that's something where, based on the content you have available, you can kind of control that a little bit. The other thing with regards to video sitemap and the video snippet in general, there's a robots meta tag that you can use to control whether or not you want to have a video preview shown for your pages. And if you do want to have a video preview shown, how long that preview should be. So that's something you can control there. The other thing is with regards to kind of removing that video snippet completely. Just removing it from the video sitemap file won't necessarily remove the video thumbnail. So essentially, if we spot a video on a page and we think this is a relevant part of the page, we can still show that video thumbnail in the search results. I think you can suppress that with the robots meta tag. I'm not 100% sure offhand. But essentially, if you want to make sure that we never show a video thumbnail for your pages, then removing the video is kind of the right step there. So those are kind of the different options there. My general recommendation here is if you're seeing a decrease in traffic to your site based on that video thumbnail, then I would consider that maybe this is also a sign that you need to improve that video so that it actually is a better representation of what you're providing on your pages, so that users look at the video and say, oh, this is actually fantastic, and then go off and look at your site. So that's, I think, kind of the long-term recommendation that I would take there. I wouldn't just blindly say, oh, people see that my pages aren't that great, and then they don't come and visit. But rather, I kind of use that as a kind of a nudge that you should increase the quality of those videos and the content too. Why does the crawling request for my homepage fail? This has started happening in the last 2 weeks. I don't know. I probably need to take a look at the individual URLs there. And this is probably also something that could be done in the help forum if you don't have a way of kind of giving me those URLs directly. Essentially, in the help forum, the folks there have a lot of experience with different kinds of website issues. And they can probably help you to figure out, like, is this a technical problem? And if so, where could it be coming from? And they can also recognize when it's an issue that's on Google's side, or probably on Google's side, and escalate that to the Google team that is kind of monitoring the forums. Are Google currently testing a new search result layout for local businesses on mobile? We're seeing instances of the Google My Business listing showing for brand search in top position. Then there's no organic listing underneath. I don't know what is happening with local search results. I'm not involved on that side at all. That's usually kind of more something on the map side. So I honestly don't know. I have seen some tweets about changes in the kind of Google My Business search results, but I don't know what is actually happening there. And with regards to testing new layouts, I would go with the assumption that Google is always testing and always trying to figure out better ways of showing the content in the search results. We've been previously told that the impressive organic visibility growth of domains at Google has nothing to do with its owner, and the fact that the folks who work on SEO at Google almost have a disadvantage compared to other people. And then it goes on into fairly long discussion of like, why is this website ranking like it is? I'd love to kind of dig into this and give some more input here. But in general, we don't talk about like why other people's websites are ranking the way they are, but rather we try to focus on like what you could be doing to improve the visibility and the quality of your own website. So just kind of like, why is this website ranking like this? Why are they shown like this? That's, from my point of view, not particularly useful. I'd rather kind of focus on individual websites themselves and try to give some input on what you could be doing to be appearing differently there. I want to add a page on my site where I list all sale events. Oh, I think we talked about this one briefly. My crawling has been slowed since the new Search Console was launched. I see sites take longer now to index. A new site could take 2 to 3 days versus the minutes with the older Search Console. Also, is there any way to limit the amount of interactions you can have with Search Console? Limits seem to be unseen also. Where can you see your daily credits? So I think there is some confusion with the question itself in terms of Search Console is essentially mostly a reporting tool for what is happening in search. It doesn't control what is happening in search. So it's not the case that like when a new Search Console is launched, then all of Google's search systems are changed. But rather, the new Search Console is kind of a new UI, uses new systems to display information about your site. And if you're seeing changes that were crawling your site slower than before, then that would not be related to Search Console. So that's, I think, the most important aspect here. With regards to limiting the interactions that you can have in Search Console, I'm not aware of any limits like that. I could imagine that if you use a script to automate Search Console, that at some point our kind of denial of service and abuse systems will kick in and just say, hey, whoa, this is not the way that Search Console was meant to be used. But essentially, for normal interactions, there's no like limit or credits that you can get with regards to how to use Search Console. Let's see. We're still experiencing a canonical issue with our international sites. Currently, our page so-and-so is indexed and canonicalized to the DECH version. I have no errors in Search Console for my hreflang sitemaps, but I do find the URLs in duplicate, submitted URL, not selected as canonical session. Is this a bug? Is there something I can do to fix this? So I probably need to take a look at the examples. What exactly is happening here? But it looks like one URL is the German for Germany version, and the other one is the German for Switzerland version of the same page. And what often is done across websites that target different versions of the same language is that they use the same content. And I don't know if that's the case here. But for example, what we would often see is that a page in German for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland might have exactly the same content. And in a situation like that, our systems would try to recognize that. Even if the pages are like only mostly the same, we would try to recognize that and pick one of these URLs as the canonical for indexing. The advantage there is that it's a lot easier for us to focus on one URL rather than to focus on 3 separate URLs. We can recrawl, reprocess that one URL a lot faster than we can 3 individual ones. In practice with the hreflang annotations on those pages, what would happen is that we would still process those hreflang annotations, and we would still be able to kind of like replay those URL changes in the search results. So practically speaking, we would index one of these versions as the canonical. Then if a user from the other location is searching, then we would swap out the URL that is shown based on the hreflang annotations. So practically speaking, the hreflang would be working. Technically speaking, we would be indexing just one version. And I think the most confusing part of all of this is that Search Console tries to be smart about this and focuses on the canonical URL. So it doesn't report to you that we're showing kind of like these different language or these different country versions to users. So in the performance report, you would only see performance data for the canonical. In the indexing report, you would only see indexing data for the canonical. And for the kind of other country versions, you would see kind of what you're seeing there is that like it's a duplicate URL, and we picked a different one as a canonical. So that kind of makes it a bit tricky. What I recommend doing in a case like this is just searching with those country settings. So I use the HL equals for the language parameter and GL equals for the country parameter and the URL parameters when searching. And search for something like, I don't know, some title from the page. And then just double check to see that it's actually swapping the URLs. And if it's swapping the URLs and everything is fine, it's like the reporting side is completely messy and hard to trust. But at least from a search point of view, it's working well. And if you need to change that so that we absolutely index these versions individually, then they absolutely need to be different. And it needs to be something where when our systems look at these pages, they can say, oh, this is really a completely different page. And then we'll index them individually. We'll report on them individually, all of that. From an SEO point of view, you're not going to get any advantage by having completely separate URLs indexed. It's really just like the reporting side is a lot easier if we index them individually. Ooh, OK, let me see if I can find something short here. We operate an online reading platform for books. When you search for a book, book schema for Google search can pull up the book in a section below the knowledge graph on the right-hand side. To submit the books, you need to implement the schema and submit your books through a form to a team at Google. We followed all the documentation, submitted a number of times, but we haven't had any progress. What can we do there? Yeah, so especially for some of the kind of newer or less used features, we tend to have this set up where you submit your site, and then someone at Google will take a look at that and see if it's aligned and if everything is OK, and we're still adding new sites to that part of search, then we'll kind of like activate that for that site. But I guess there are like two situations where sometimes that doesn't work that directly. On the one hand, if there's like not a big team that is working on this feature at the moment, then maybe they won't be processing those submissions. On the other hand, if there's work being done to activate this across the board so that anyone can use this markup, then sometimes they just wait until they can actually launch that kind of like fully open version of that setup. But if you can give me maybe some sample URLs, maybe some information about what you tried to submit there, I can try to find a team internally and pass that on. I can't guarantee that they'll be able to activate this for your site, but I'm happy to let them know, like, oh, this site has been kind of like trying to get into this feature for a while and hasn't had any response so far. Ooh, OK. Kind of running low on time, but maybe I'll take a couple of live questions, and then like the last couple of times, I'll hang around a little bit more to answer more of your questions after the recording stops. Let's see, Ibrahim, I think you're next.
Hello, everyone. So we are one of the big pharmacies in Switzerland, and recently we gained about 300 to 400 spammy backlinks. Most of them are hosted by Blogspot. So my question is, do you recommend me to disavow them in Search Console, or no, just let them go and just, yeah?
I think if you're a big site and you're seeing a couple hundred kind of spammy links, I would just ignore them. So it's something where if if you know that in the past you've kind of bought links, then like that's worth kind of disavowing. Or if you look at it and you say, anyone from Google, when they look at this, they will think, oh, I bought these links, then that's worth disavowing. But if these are like random blogger links and they're just like spammy, weird blogs that are linking to your site, I would just ignore them.
They are weird, spammy backlinks. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Merci.
All right, Tom.
You've already answered my question, John. I was the online bookstore. So thank you very much for that. And I'll put something together and I'll get in touch.
Cool. Fantastic. All right. Pavel.
Hello, John. Hi. Just have a quick question, actually. So I'm here with Pocket Pills. We are one of the biggest online pharmacies here in Canada. We serve the whole country. And we are debating this question, which I've tackled as well before. I know you probably have covered, but I wanted to bring it up once again. So it is very interesting for us to be able to obviously target the term, for instance, online pharmacy plus a particular geo-target or province or city, such as maybe Ontario, British Columbia, or whatnot. So the question here is really, should we aim to have separate landing pages for each province and potentially each city? Or should we just stick to our main homepage, right? The issue here is, of course, from the data that we see coming in from our current and existing users, people might benefit from having some dedicated content specific to and tailored to their particular specific location. Some medications are more popular than others in different areas of Canada, and so we really want to serve the user in that way. And that's what we thought about, separate landing pages. But at the same time, of course, we are concerned about, keyword cannibalization. So could you give us any input in that?
Yeah, I think the aspect I would worry about more is doorway pages. Kind of everything around, like, I don't know how many provinces there are in Canada, so I feel like I'm missing some crucial piece of information. But if this is something like along the lines of, I don't know, a handful, maybe, I don't know, up to 20 things, then that feels like something where maybe that makes sense to have individual pages for that. Especially if you know that there are individual guidelines for these individual provinces, for example. Then that's something where I'd say, well, maybe it makes sense to have something for those provinces, for kind of like a global company, where you're really saying this is actually unique information for people in that province and information that they need, and not just like popular products from your region kind of thing, but rather it's like actually something useful from that. On a city level, I think that's going almost like way too far, because then you suddenly have like hundreds or thousands of these pages, and you can't realistically provide unique guidance on a city level if you're a kind of a global or countrywide company. So that's something where I'd say, like, if you end up with, I don't know, 10, 20 different versions of these pages, that seems like something reasonable. If you're going way past that, then you're essentially going into the area of doorway pages, where you create a lot of pages. Maybe they map to individual keywords, but you're diluting the value of your site on the one hand, which means kind of like the bigger mass that you already have built up is kind of like diluted, which means if there's a lot more competition, I imagine there is, then that makes it harder for you. It's like easier to rank for some random city name plus pharmacy, but then kind of like the head terms, you kind of really lose out there. By also not diluting it too far, you avoid the risk of being seen as having a bunch of doorway pages as well.
Perfect, John. Thank you so much. I have another quick question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And this is regarding, I think this topic has also been covered as well before, but I'm bringing it up once again. And it is the matter of how to handle on-page citations. And this is just to give you a specific example very quickly. We sometimes have to reference certain details from the manufacturer or pharmaceutical that we get pretty much our medications from. And so we obviously would like to provide a link and a source to our visitors so they can always go back and check the manufacturer's details. So the question here is, how should we handle these citations on our page? Is it best to have them, for instance, obviously, using something like Chicago style, right? So having it at the bottom of the page, perhaps, footnoters, right? But should they be follow link attributes? Should they open on a separate tab? Should they open an existing tab? Should they be in an accordion? Should they not be in an accordion? How do you suggest we handle those? Thank you.
So from an SEO point of view, I would make these normal links, so not with a nofollow, because it's essentially information that you're providing. So as long as those are not affiliate links, then it's not that they're paid links. It's more information that is organically provided within your website. And how you structure that within your website is more something I would look at from a user experience point of view, and maybe do some tests with users to see like which way works best for them, how they can best recognize that like these are useful links, these are authoritative links because they're from the manufacturer, and all of these kind of like subtle details. From an SEO point of view, I don't think it matters if they open in the same tab or a different tab, or if you have an accordion or whatever. It's really more the user side that I would worry about there.
Perfect. OK. I wanted to add to a previous answer you brought up, because I think it actually might be helpful for everyone here. And it was the notion of, for instance, sometimes adding, of course, category pages to your homepage, or perhaps the most important products that we would like to have featured right on our homepage. So this is something that we experience quite frequently, because we may add new medications onto our product catalog. The issue or the question we have here is, would sometimes swapping out, for instance, some of the feature products on our homepage in favor of having some of the newer products that we add to our catalog, for us to get them indexed first, of course, and then ranked by Google as well, would it somehow dilute then the perhaps even the ranking or the crawlability of the previously submitted important products as well that we actually have on our pharmacy? Could you give us some input?
Yeah, I mean, if you change the structure of your website, then we'll try to reflect that in search. So if you previously said this product is one of the most important ones, it's linked from the homepage, and you remove that link, then suddenly we say, oh, it's no longer one of the most important ones. We will still be able to crawl it, because probably it's still indexed. We will still be able to find it and update it. But we'll kind of say, well, it's not one of the most important ones anymore. So with that in mind, it's like usually what I see on e-commerce sites is that they have different sections kind of in that homepage area, where they say is like most popular products, newest products, something like that. And that kind of works for users, because they go to the homepage and they see, oh, new products, I'll take a look. And it also works for search engines, because we can pick up, oh, most popular. And it's like we can also see kind of the newest products as well.
I see. Perfect. Thank you so much, John. I'd like to give more time to you guys as well. Thank you.
Cool. OK. Let me take a break here with the recording. And I'll be around a little bit longer, so we can continue to chat. But kind of make sure that the recording is a reasonable length. Thanks for all of you who are watching this recording afterwards. I hope you find it useful. And maybe I'll see some of you in one of the future Hangouts as well. All right. Bye for now. Let's see.